Hey there, everybody. This is your wonderful science teacher, Mr. Clemens. And you're probably sitting there with a substitute today thinking, we don't have to get anything done. Oh no, this entire back part of your lab needs to be finished and turned in by the end of the hour. It was technically due yesterday, so if you get it turned in today, 10% off, right? But you don't want to wait till Monday because that penalty gets deeper. So let's actually lock in, focus, and do our best on completing this back conversion table. How do we do it? I'm going to be very straightforward. If you take a look at example number 1 here, it's asking you for how many inches per yard. Well, how do we figure that out? We come over here and we take a look at some of the conversion factors that are provided. We know there's 12 inches in 1 foot. We know that there are 3 feet and 1 yard. We need both of those conversion factors to be able to answer this question. So, the method that I am teaching you is a dimensional analysis method that helps you set up the fraction that you will need to figure out your answers here. Anytime you are doing a conversion, you are setting up a fraction of some form. So this helps you determine where to put each of these numbers here on the fraction. So please keep that in mind. It's going to show you what to multiply together and what to divide. That's all this method is for. So we want to know how many inches are in a yard. We have to start with what we know. We have 1 yard. On these other ones down here, we have 1 meter, we have 1 mile, we have 1 mile. So those are what we start with. So the first thing I do is I come up here and I'll put 1 yard. And I will create my fraction. You see, I'm starting to create the fraction. Right now, it's just 1 yard over 1. Okay, so not a big deal. But we need to get it to the next thing. So, what do I know? I know how many feet are in a yard. So I'm going to start with that. So I'm going to draw my divider line here over for the next part of the fraction. And because I want to get rid of yards, I have to divide by yards. So I'm going to put 1 yard down here because that is this right here, 1 yard. And how many feet are in a yard? Well, that's 3 feet. So already, just so that you can see, this is 1 yard times 3 feet divided by 1 times 1 yard. So that's the fraction we've set up so far, but it's not asking for feet per yard, it's asking for inches. So now we have to add the next part of the fraction. So I'm going to come over here and take a look. How many inches are in 1 foot? Well, there's 12. And I want to get rid of feet. You see that? Feet are on top, and I want inches on top. So I need to put feet down here in the denominator in order to get rid of that unit. So I put 1 foot, because it's for every 1 foot, I have 12 inches. Okay? So now I have everything I need for my fraction. What does this look like? I now need to add times 12 inches times 1 foot. Now, when I do this, I want to put these in parentheses. See that? And as you remember from middle school math, everything in the parentheses are going to be done first. So I multiply the stuff on top together, and I get 36 yard feet inches. All of those things have been multiplied together. And on the bottom, I have 1 times 1 yard times 1 foot. So I have 1 yard, foot. Now the great thing is, now I have to complete my fraction, and this is where the magic happens. When I divide the top by the bottom, watch what happens to the units. A yard divided by a yard is 1. A foot divided by a foot is 1, leaving inches. So what do we end up with? 36 inches divided by 1, which is 36 inches. And that is the answer. Now, it's asking the next question. How many inches in 1 meter? So, for that, what we can do is come down here and take a look at our conversions. Now, I want to tell you something. Mr. Clemens made a mistake when he made this worksheet, and he forgot to correct it. So, everybody, what you want to do is cross this out and put YD, and you want to cross this out and put meter, because a meter is about 3 1/3 inches longer than a yard. So I actually messed up this little conversion factor. Apologies on that. But now we have what we need, right? Because we know how many inches are in a yard, and we know how many yards fit into 1 meter. So if we go from meters to yards, we can then go from yards to inches. That's how we're going to do this. So again, let's start off with what we know. We start off with 1 meter. That's what it's asking right here. It says you have 1 meter and you want to know how many inches are inside of that 1 meter. So let's do that. 1 meter divided by 1. And then we know that for every 1 meter, because of this over here, we have 1.093 yards. But again, we're not asking for yards, we're asking for inches. And since we now know there's 36 inches per yard, we come over here and put yards on bottom because we want to get rid of them. And then we want to put our 36 inches on the top. Now we have everything we need to create our fraction. It's 1 meter times 1.093 yards times 36 inches divided by 1 times 1 meter times 1 yard. Now, if I do the math and I multiply all of this stuff together, just like before, these are in parentheses, these are in parentheses, so you got to do the parentheses first. I will take 1 times 1.093 times 36, and what I end up with is 39.35 inches per meter. That's my answer. Why? Because the yards cancel out, the meter canceled out, and then it's just 39.35 divided by 1. So pretty simple. So then you come up here, and 39.35 was the answer. And that's really insanely close to what we were using the other day when we were doing this. Then I just gave you that answer, right? So you can see this is how you go about this process. So how do you figure out inches per mile? Well, look, you know how many feet per mile, and you know how many inches per foot. So you're going to basically be doing this just with miles. How many yards per mile? Well, you know how many feet per mile, and you know how many feet are in a yard. So similar work. But I want to point something out. So far, the examples I gave you, you have 1 down here at the denominator. That's not always going to happen. That's just how it worked out for these two examples. So keep in mind, what goes on the bottom is what you're trying to get rid of. What goes on the top is what you're trying to convert to. And then you just use these conversion factors that we've created or that have been given to you. That tells you what the number is. Hopefully that clarifies some things for everybody. Hopefully that helps you get through today's work, because after this, you have another worksheet to complete. Now, the last part is number 4. It says converting your distance. This is for the front of your lab. You're going to take the total distance that you walked in all of your classes, and you're going to convert that from meters to kilometers. So on the front of this worksheet, let's say in a day I walk 1,000 meters. I'm doing this because it makes it easy. That was, I counted up all of my steps between all of my classes, and I converted my steps over to inches, and then I figured out what the distance was between each of my classes, and I added all that up, and then boom, now I have this. Okay, so I walk 1,000 meters a day. Well, how do I convert that to kilometers? Well, great thing is there's 1,000 meters per kilometer. So how would I set this up? I'm starting with my 1,000 meters that I just walked, and then I'm going to say, well, I know there's 1,000 meters per 1 kilometer, so 1 kilometer, 1,000 meters. See, now there's something different on the bottom. What's the same? Well, the thing I'm trying to get rid of, see? That's what is the same. That's how this method works. Whatever you want to get rid of goes on bottom. So now I set up my fraction. I have 1,000 meters times 1 kilometer divided by 1,000 meters. Fun thing is, when I do this and multiply them all together, this turns into 1. So then it's just 1 kilometer. Okay, but then I have to use my conversion factor up here to figure out miles. So in that instance, it would be 1 kilometer, and I want to get to miles, so I put miles on top, and 1 kilometer is, 1 mile is 1.61 kilometers. And again, the kilometers will cancel out, but now what do I have? I have 1 kilometer times 1 mile divided by 1.61 kilometers. Again, that turns into 1, so it's 1 divided by 1.61. And when you do that, you'll get your answer. Now, your number, this number right here, this 1,000, that's a made-up number. I'm pretending like that was my total that I walked all day long. Your number is going to be different, but how you convert is going to be the same. Okay? So follow this process, and then look, you got inches, yards, football fields. There's 120 yards per football field. Okay? So that's how you go about doing it. We will go over your answers and stuff on Monday, and have a wonderful weekend, guys.